My boss laughed when I told him my daughter wanted to be the boss someday. He smirked and said, "Better teach her how to make coffee first." That moment flipped a switch in me. What started as humiliation sparked a quiet fire. Within a year, I owned the very company that mocked me. If you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or dismissed, this story is for you. By the end, you'll see how silently building power can flip everything upside down. I know because I did it. Raising a daughter alone, I secretly built a business strategy career no one saw coming. And what happened next? You won't forget it. Part 1. The invisible struggle. I remember the exact moment my boss, Richard Hale, smirked at me across that glass conference table. The afternoon light caught the polished chrome of his watch as he lazily flipped through a spreadsheet I had spent weeks perfecting. His lips curled, and with the same dismissive tone he always used, he muttered, "Single moms like you don't exactly have options, Emma." My breath caught mid-sentence. The room dropped into a suffocating silence. It buzzed louder than any noise. No one around the table looked up. Papers rustled. Someone coughed. My ears rang. I sat there frozen, notebook in hand, forcing my eyes down as if scribbling something useful. Anything to hide the surge of humiliation twisting in my chest. My fingers twitched against the page until the tip of my pen snapped. I didn't react, because I couldn't afford to. Not yet. To Richard, I was Emma Carter. Divorced, single mom, overworked assistant, a ghost in business casual. He saw a liability. A burden. What he didn't see were the nights I calculated grocery store budgets at midnight, lit only by the flicker of the stove clock, after Lily had finally drifted to sleep beside her worn-out stuffed rabbit. He didn't see the whispered promises I made to her each morning, kneeling by her bed as the sunrise peeked through threadbare curtains. "Mommy's got this. Mommy will make it right." He didn't see the quiet desperation in every bagged lunch I packed, the way I stretched $1 further than it had any business going, or the lump I swallowed each time I wrote "past due" on a bill, and pushed it to the bottom of the pile. Richard didn't know about the 2 a.m. tears I blinked away in the dark when I doubted myself, when the weight of balancing single motherhood and corporate servitude felt like trying to hold back the ocean with bare hands. He didn't see how I would stand in the shower just to have one private moment to cry, only to dry my eyes and step out with a forced smile because my daughter deserved a mother who looked fearless. He never noticed the overtime I gave freely, the weekends I sacrificed, or the presentations I stayed up all night polishing to make him look good. He never knew that behind every "yes sir" and every silent nod was a woman memorizing everything, taking notes not just on marketing reports but on power dynamics, leadership blind spots, and the cracks in his empire. That day, something deep inside me hardened. Not like ice. No, ice shatters. It was like steel being forged. It burned first, but when it cooled, it was unbreakable. I wasn't just tired, I wasn't just angry, I was dangerous. He just didn't know it yet. And soon he would. Part 2. The quiet resolve. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep with her tiny fingers curled around mine, I sat alone at the kitchen table under the flicker of the old fridge light. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that pressed down on your shoulders and filled your chest until breathing felt like effort. Outside, a distant siren wailed through the city night, but inside, it was just me, the glow of my aging laptop, and the storm I had been holding back for years. I opened a folder labeled "Someday." I had created it months ago, half fantasy, half fragile blueprint. Inside were business plans, articles on finance and strategy, PDF downloads of startup success stories, and half-sketched ideas I had jotted in stolen moments between diaper changes and conference calls. It had started as late-night curiosity, then a safety net. Now, as I clicked through each file, it felt like a spark rekindling into something fierce. I didn't just read that night, I devoured. I studied mergers and acquisitions until my eyes blurred. I dissected case studies of women-led startups that had crushed the competition. I took notes on business models, branding, equity structures, every piece of the puzzle that I had once believed was out of reach for someone like me. But it wasn't just about the knowledge, it was about reclaiming control. Soon after, I stumbled into a small opportunity, a freelance consulting gig for Ravenbridge Capital, a rising private equity firm with a reputation for spotting diamonds in the rough. A friend of a friend had vouched for my analytical mind. They didn't know my day job. They didn't know I was the woman fetching coffee by day and cramming numbers by night. Under the radar, I became Emma, the anonymous strategist. I ghost wrote market analyses. I advised on turnaround strategies. My reports saved a failing portfolio company, earning Ravenbridge millions. I worked in shadows. Zoom calls at midnight with my webcam off so they couldn't see the bags under my eyes or the crayon drawings behind me on the kitchen wall. Conference calls taken from my car while Lily napped in the back seat. I built presentations during school pickup lines, memorized pitch decks between grocery runs, and typed strategy briefs with one hand while flipping pancakes with the other. And with every passing week, I realized something startling. I was good at this, better than I had let myself believe. Better, frankly, than Richard and half the boardroom men I served coffee to every morning. My confidence grew, so did my network. Madison Cole, a managing partner at Ravenbridge, began looping me into bigger conversations, trusting my judgment on acquisitions and restructures. She knew me only by my work, not my title, not my baggage, not my circumstances, just my brain. Then, one evening, as I sat bleary-eyed with a cold cup of coffee and Lily's soft breathing humming in the background, an email popped up that made my pulse spike. Subject: acquisition interest. Hale Corp. Richard's company. My world tilted. I clicked open the email, scanning the lines feverishly. Ravenbridge was eyeing a controlling stake in Hale Corp. Madison's note was succinct but clear. Given your deep familiarity with the industry, your insights on this target would be invaluable. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I felt every heartbeat in my throat. This wasn't just business anymore, this was the crack in the wall I had been waiting for. I closed my eyes, exhaled slowly and whispered to the quiet kitchen, "Okay, let's play." That night, as the city slept and my daughter dreamed beside me, I opened a new document and began outlining what would become the plan to take over Richard Hale's empire brick by brick, quietly and surgically, until the very foundation he stood on would belong to me. The quiet resolve had hardened into strategy, and the clock had started ticking. Part 3. The Unveiling. The day of the reveal dawned gray and cold, but inside me everything burned sharp and clear. I had rehearsed this moment endlessly in my mind. I knew the weight of each document, the order of every signature. I could see Richard's office before I even arrived, the sterile glass walls, the smug way he always sat with his chair tilted back and his polished shoes propped on the edge of his desk. But nothing could fully prepare me for the electricity in my veins as I stepped into that building. The same revolving doors I had rushed through 1,000 times now felt different under my palms. My heels clicked on the tile floors with a precision that matched my heartbeat, steady, deliberate. I carried a simple leather folder. Inside it, the final ironclad acquisition documents. As I walked past familiar faces, people who had never truly seen me, I caught glimpses of curiosity. A few coworkers glanced up, brows furrowed as if they sensed a shift in the air but couldn't name it yet. By noon, I stood in front of Richard's door. My hand hovered over the knob for half a second longer than necessary. I could hear muffled voices from the other side, his typical clipped orders and half-laughs meant to belittle whoever sat in front of him. I knocked. Twice. Yeah, come in, he barked without looking up. Leave the weekly reports on the desk. I stepped inside, my pulse thudded steady as a war drum. He sat there exactly as I imagined, leaned back, legs crossed, flipping through his phone with bored disinterest. His desk was cluttered with the usual black coffee, scattered reports and a watch catalog open to a page he'd been eyeing for weeks. "Richard," I said evenly. He barely glanced up. "Emma, what now?" Without a word, I strode forward and laid the leather folder directly in the center of his desk, perfectly aligned with the edges. He blinked. Slowly, his hand drifted toward it. His brow furrowed as he opened the cover and began flipping through the pages. I watched closely. First confusion. Then a frown. Then, exactly as I had envisioned, his eyes widened. His lips parted, but no sound escaped. He flipped back to the first page, scanning the signatures. His fingers trembled ever so slightly as he turned to the transfer of ownership document. I let the silence stretch, thick and charged. "Emma," he finally croaked, voice dry. "What is this?" I took one calm step closer, my shadow falling across the papers. "You should read it." Carefully, he swallowed hard, flipping faster now, frantic. I could see the exact moment it hit him, the realization solidifying in his eyes like concrete. Ravenbridge Capital. Acquisition. Majority stake. Lead advisor Emma Carter. His Adam's apple bobbed. He looked up, face drained of its usual arrogant flush. The smirk was gone. The bravado had cracked like glass under pressure. This can't be right, he stammered. You don't even have how did you? I tilted my head slightly, letting the smallest smile touch the corner of my lips. The kind of smile I had swallowed 1,000 times before. I bought this company, I said softly, clearly. 4 words. The 4 words I had dreamed of, bled for, fought for. He sat back heavily in his chair. The leather creaked under his shifting weight. His gaze darted around the office like he expected someone to burst in and announce it was all a joke. No one came. Finally, after what felt like an eternity stretched taut as a wire, he whispered, "What happens now?" I took a slow breath, savoring the weight of the moment. The tables had not just turned, they had flipped and shattered. I let my eyes drift around the office. The awards on the shelves he had so proudly displayed, the framed photos of him shaking hands with CEOs, the marble plaque on his desk that had always seemed untouchable. I met his gaze one last time. "Now," I said, voice steady as steel, "we do things differently." I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving him staring at the documents and at the wreckage of the kingdom he had built by stepping on people like me. Outside his door, I exhaled deeply for the first time in months. The air tasted sweeter somehow, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt unstoppable. Part 4. The larger meaning. Richard resigned quietly the following week. No grand speeches, no final power plays. Just a curt email to the board and a box of personal belongings clutched tightly in his white-knuckled grip as he walked out through the lobby without a word. The same man who once barked orders and demanded absolute deference passed by me without so much as a glance. His empire, the fortress he had guarded with arrogance and condescension, now belonged to the very person he had overlooked. I didn't celebrate outwardly. There were no gloating victory laps. Instead, I rolled up my sleeves and did what I had always done. I worked. But this time, I worked differently. In the weeks that followed, I made it my mission to know every corner of the company Richard had ignored. I visited departments he had dismissed as unimportant. I sat with junior analysts and operations staff, listening to frustrations that had gone unheard for years. I found talent buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, brilliant minds that had been sidelined because they didn't fit Richard's narrow mold. I made changes that once seemed impossible. We launched a flexible work program that allowed parents, especially single parents like me, to balance work and life with dignity. We installed on-site childcare. We pushed mental health support front and center. We created leadership development programs for people who had been overlooked because they didn't come from the right background or wear the right suit. Slowly, the energy in the building shifted. People didn't stay late out of fear anymore. They stayed because they believed in what we were building. Departments began collaborating instead of competing. Employees who had once cowered in meetings began speaking up, bringing ideas that crackled with innovation and heart. In Richard's old office, I tore down the intimidating framed degrees and corporate awards that had lined the walls like trophies in a glass case. In their place, I hung community art pieces from local artists, photos of team celebrations, and one framed photograph of my daughter Lily, smiling wide on the day she learned to ride a bike. Above my desk, in simple black script, I framed a single quote, "Never forget who you were before they told you who to be." Every time doubt crept back in, because yes, even with success, it still did. I would read those words and remember the woman who had once sat frozen in a boardroom, swallowing her pride and her tears. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And I did it on my terms. Sometimes people would ask me if I had done it all for revenge, if buying the company was just about humiliating Richard, flipping the script, making him feel what I had felt. I won't lie to you, a part of me wanted him to feel it. A part of me wanted him to sit in the silence and taste the fear and powerlessness he had dished out so freely. But mostly, I did it for Lily. I did it so she would grow up in a world where she knew she could take up space. So she'd never shrink herself to fit into a place that didn't deserve her. So she'd see her mother not as someone who got knocked down, but as someone who stood up anyway. And maybe, just maybe, I did it for every woman who has been underestimated, every mother who was told her career was over, every quiet voice that had been talked over, dismissed, or ignored. We are not burdens. We are not lucky to be here. We are capable, brilliant, and powerful in ways they can't measure on a spreadsheet. And sometimes the ones who have been told to stay silent are the ones rewriting all the rules. So if you're out there right now doubting yourself, feeling invisible, small, stuck, please hear me when I say this. You are not small. You're just waiting for your moment. And when it comes, don't whisper. Own it. And maybe, just maybe, buy the building too.